ever wonder about Halloween? Bats, pumpkins, carving them, witches, ghouls, and ghosts? Do you ever wonder where all of this comes from? Well, stick around because tonight's episode, live, we're going to cover the history, the origins of Halloween. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Halloween edition. As promised, guys, this is part one of four Halloween edition specials where tonight we're going to be talking about the origins, the history of Halloween. So I am so excited, guys. I can't wait to dive into this. So, welcome everybody in the live chat. Again, good evening, Tanta Longo. Again, guys, I'm going to do my best to acknowledge people and do what I can, but we have a big show for you guys tonight as we really dive into the origins and history. Now, we're not going to get into like super details, but we're going to get into a good coverage because remember, our histories of Halloween, they really go back. Everything stems back thousands of years ago. So we're going to go ahead and start getting right into this, y'all. So I'm excited. So remember, we're going to seek the truth about the Halloween. So thousands of years ago, guys. So we're going to go back to the old Celtic calendar. That's right. So in the old Celtic calendar, it was actually divided up into two halves. We had a light half and we had a dark half of the year. And of course, they had their great holiday was Salem. Okay, and Salem was their ancient holiday, and it was a precursor to our Halloween. It was actually the beginning. It marked the beginning of the dark half. So the Celts would celebrate at night with bonfires on October 31st to welcome the new year. Because in all honesty, like back then, harvest was like a matter of life and death. I mean, seriously, back in those days, guys, they didn't have stores, right? So if your harvest didn't come in, people are going to starve. They couldn't just run to Walmart. So they took harvest very seriously. So to celebrate that fact, beginning of the dark half, they had their festival. They would spark up the bonfires. And this is actually where we believe we kind of get the first symbol of Halloween, which is bats. That's right. See, also thousands of years ago, we didn't have street lights, right? We didn't have, so most of the time, the only way that, humans usually saw bats was when they had the fires going. And of course, the fires would attract the insects, the light, and the bats would be coming and swooping in for the insects as well. So this is where again we started getting a little bit of that tradition already, all the way back then. Um, and also, what the Celts believed was that during this time, okay, during the moment of time is when like life and death were flexible, and believe it or not, like the spirits of the past, present, and other relatives could or and realities could walk between our worlds and theirs. So, and it's even believed to have said that, like on this time frame, the people of the living could get trapped in the world of the dead. You could accidentally stumble into their world and not return. So, it kind of also sounds like an excuse for them to just, kill off somebody and then just like, oh, they must have died in the spirit world. Yeah. So I don't know. It's crazy. Um, but definitely the bat was really one of the first things that was associated with these things. So that's really cool. I enjoy that. And also at the same time, thousands of years ago, actually many other cultures actually around that same time would also set aside like a day or two to celebrate and honor their dead. Um, but it actually was the Christian church. Yes, you heard me. The Christian church would actually be the ones to start introducing and shaping some of the traditions that we actually use. That's right. A pagan holiday back then, which was called Lemuria. Okay, Lemuria was on May 13th, and it was actually co opted by the church in an effort to sort of, stamp out paganism in 1609 AD. Lemuria was kind of the scariest days of the Russian calendar. The ghosts of the departed would actually rise up and haunt people. So what the what people would do to quell the dead, they would pour milk on their graves or offer up little cakes. Okay, so you can kind of see where again some of the little things that they do. Um, the church also what they did. So when they co-opted it, they actually changed it to All Saints Day. Okay, and to honor the most holiest of Christians. But they actually kept a lot of the same traditions. So by doing that, they actually made All Saints Day really popular. So a lot of the pagan they converted a lot of people to Christianity. So it was so popular that they decided to move it to November 1st. So they changed it to um, uh, but yeah, they kept it like that. Well, anyways, they actually moved to November 1st, and it was called All Hallows Day. Okay, and then because Samhain fell on October 31st, the day before. People started calling that All Hallows Evening. Okay, and then shortened it to All Hallows Even, and then eventually Halloween. So that's how the name evolved over the years. Now, the church decided to go one step further, right? The church decided, you know what? We're going to have an All Souls Day on November 2nd. We're going to keep the party rolling, right? So on November 2nd, they had an All Souls Day. And All Souls Day was to basically um, honor like everyday Christians, right? Like, and this is where and this is actually where it started getting its association with death, dead souls, and supernatural. Because again, they're keeping those same traditions, All Souls Day, and they're talking about the dead rising and quelling things. So again, the church is really what started bringing the spooky element really into Halloween, at least the precursors, right? So now moving forward, kind of now we started moving into the Middle Ages, right? The Middle Age in the Middle Ages, one of the things that the church started to have people do was to pray for people to get out of purgatory. This became a popular thing. Is purgatory, for those of you that don't know, is it's not quite heaven, it's not quite hell, it's in between, right? If you're stuck in purgatory, you can't go either way. But apparently the church said, look, you can get people out of purgatory if you pray hard enough. So believe it or not, this actually led to children to go souling, right? They went souling. So what the kids actually would go door to door, and they would ask people, or they would ask for spiced cakes. Back then, they had these spiced cakes and they had these raisins in them and stuff. But they would ask for basically treats, right? Spiced cakes, and in return for those for begging for cakes, they would offer prayers for people stuck in purgatory. So as you can see, this is where again, this is something that's regularly occurring throughout a time period. Okay, so people are getting used to these customs each time they're sort of tweaking things, as you can see. And then as we kind of roll into the 16th century, remember this is the 1500s, and this is probably where a lot of a lot of people know about the Salem witch trials and things like that. Well, before that in Europe, there was a witch panic, right? It spread over to the colonies, but there was a witch panic, and mostly it was women, mostly, and they were seen in league with Satan. And it is tragic. So what it really was is a lot of times there was these women that were kind of eccentric. You know what I'm talking about. You probably know some of them to this day. There's certain women that can be, or even men, but they can be kind of loners. They're like the cat lady. Sometimes they're the ones that do the spiritual healing crystals, probably. So back then in the 16th century, again, some of these women, they were probably your healers. They were the ones that were doing potions and spirit of debate. Hey, boo! But these women were probably the ones doing the potions and enchantments and cures for people. Um, cutting roots and making up different things for people for and again, they probably were eccentric. And also too, one of the things is that their everyday household instruments started to take on an evil sense. All of a sudden, brooms became transportation. Brooms, of course, were very common. Cauldrons were very common back then. And even in the 16th century, women had these kind of pointy, kind of farm style hats. So the pointed hat started to take shape back then. And another common thing, too, a lot of them had cats, or the black cats would be hanging around the hearth back then. So all of this imagery, and this is where again the beginnings of what the classic version of a witch started from, was that witch panic. And of course, everybody knows about the Salem witch trials. That's crazy. So hey, everybody, I see you see me. Terry Lynn, of course, my wife. It's good to see you guys in here. And I hope you guys learn a lot about Halloween tonight. If you miss some of it, you'll just have to go back and watch some. But um, so, still, again, mainly in Europe, even though there was the Salem witch trials. Now, the origins of masks, right? So, around this time in the Middle Ages, there also was a destructiveness really started to occur. Okay. And there was rowdy drinkers, and they started putting masks on to get away with stuff. They actually, in Britain, there would be small groups that were starting to go around and go door to door, putting on these little plays, and they would get rewarded with food, drink, and or money. So again, the masks were a way for people to kind of hide themselves, play these plays, be rowdy. It was starting to take a little bit more shape again, and this started occurring year after year. So, guys, imagine, just this. A lot of these traditions are already starting, 600 A.D. when the Christians, co-opted Lemuria, and as we go hundreds of years, almost 1,000 years of just tradition of people going and celebrating, doing these things. Now we're getting into some destructiveness and rowdiness and putting masks on. So um, in the 17th century, okay, this actually marked a time when rural traditions started to find their way into the cities because of a individual named Guy Fawkes. So if anybody that's from overseas or somebody that likes Halloween history, you probably know who Guy Fawkes is. Um, my ex kept a broom in the garage. Was she a witch? uh, I'm getting no sound, Josh. Well, yeah, I don't know why you're getting no sound. That must be something on your end. I can hear myself through my wife's feed, so we must be getting sound there. Um, so yeah, there might be something you may have to look and see what's going on with your sound on that. So let me get back to this. Guy Fawkes. Guy Fawkes, he actually in on November 5th, 1605, he tried to blow up London's House of Lords with 36 kegs of gunpowder. All right, so this dude tried to blow up, right, the House of Lords. So of course he was captured, he was tried, hung, and then, as legend tells it, he was drawn and quartered, and his pieces were chucked into a fire. So every year around that same time, unruly kids, of course, use it as an opportunity to mock the memory of Guy Fawkes and started causing chaos in the streets every year, begging, uh, parading around, and building bonfires. Just, just being unruly back then. Every year, like I said, around that time. So remember, guys, we got like October 31st. You still had your All Hallows Eve, even or Halloween date, basically Salem Festival. Then you had your November 1st was still um, your your All Hallows Day. Then you had your Souls Day on the 2nd. Then November 5th, you had Guy Fawkes Day. It was just this period of just this week of being, I guess, naughty, being unruly, wearing masks, doing these things, asking, going around begging, asking for cakes and putting on plays, doing these things. So all these things were floating around, these old world traditions, as they call them. So meanwhile, back in America, the colonial Puritans, they did not want these old world traditions making it to the colonies. Unfortunately, again, people, colonials were going to celebrate because, again, a lot of them came over from England. So they started having some bonfires and stuff at the end of the year, some Guy Fawkes celebrations. It was an excuse for them to party and have fun, right? So they started having these parties. And again, unfortunately, there was just no fighting it, and it just started to become embraced by a lot of the other colonists. Um, and it just really seeded it really planted the seeds to start shaping up to what our Halloween. You like my bat hat? See, I know I purposely did that too. So wanted to have a cool Halloween background. You guys like the Halloween background and the special little intro I had for you guys? So if you missed it, look, here was my special intro. Hey, and we're back. That was like a commercial break, right? So hopefully you guys like my special little Halloween intro. I thought that was my pretty cool. All right, so now we're gonna kick into something here. This is where we're gonna start turning into the 1800s. Okay, so as we get into the 1800s, around like 1833, I believe, there actually was a description of a small party where they were sitting around and talking about ghost stories and things like that. That's really some of the first evidence we started seeing of like those type of gatherings of actual, sitting around talking about ghosts. But really, what when we started getting into the Civil War, right, in the mid 1860s, when the Civil War ended, especially like 1865, you got to remember this country went through one of the bloodiest battles, right, in this nation's history. And when it was done, over 500,000 people were dead in the Civil War. I mean, it's crazy, and so many of the bodies were actually unknown or unclaimed, and so it just caused this obsession with death in the country. So many people were just misplaced. They didn't know maybe there was a chance that um, somebody could come home from the war. Again, just so many unknowns, and really we see ghost stories starting to pop up everywhere after the Civil War. Became very common for ghost stories, and a lot of those back then involved, of course, soldiers returning home, even as ghosts. So that's really where we started seeing the mass amounts of the spooky ghost stories, and again, these soldiers coming home. Um, and then also too, right after the Civil War, you had an influx of Scots and Irish immigrants, and they brought the old world Halloween customs. So they also helped. One of the things, especially the Scots, was one of the things that they brought in that added to our traditions was bogies or bogeymen. And of course, you guys know it evolved to boogeyman, right? But the bogeyman were pestering ghosts that plagued children by hiding under their beds and tapping on their windows. Um, and of course, they were believed to be like everywhere. Like you go through a gate, and they were everywhere. So, so again, we introduced the boogeyman around that time, thanks to the Scots and Irish coming in. Now, so some of you probably wonder, what about this guy? What about these, the pumpkins here? Well, this goes back, of course, to Europe. There was a legend about a man named Jack o' Lantern, and he was such a mischievous troublemaker that he was actually thrown out of hell. And on his way out, the devil gave him an ember of hell for him to take with him, and he put it in a hollowed out turnip and would carry it around. So kids started carving out turnips over there with candles in them, and that was the beginning of carving something and putting candles in it. Now, uh, we get over to Americans. We decide as Americans we got to improve on this. So, and of course, the pumpkin harvest always comes in around that time, right? So we decided to pick a softer fruit like pumpkin and carve it out and put a candle inside. Well, now Halloween finally had its trademark, right? And with that being said, now remember this is back then. Okay, so remember this is not something that's probably going to fly now. But back then, kids also figured out that if you carve up your pumpkin nice and scary looking, and then you take like a stick and you put a sheet over the stick and you put it up into the pumpkin, it makes this pumpkin head like sheet person, and you can go around with the candle lit inside, and you can go outside of people's windows and you can pop them up in the windows and scare people and prank people with these jack-o'-lanterns. So that was a common thing for a while, people getting scared by you know uh, these, because I mean you gotta figure, I'm sure back then it would be, I mean, think about the image of a scary carved out pumpkin, on this ghostly stick, and you just hear tapping on the window. And back then it was like, we didn't have TV, they didn't have all that, so their imaginations run wild. They heard the Scottish and the Irish talking about bogies. We got the bogeyman. And so they hear this tapping on the window and they kind of walk over like, what's that tapping on the window? All of a sudden, blah, like this jack-o'-lantern pops up, it's like, it would be scary. People were getting punked back then. See? So that's really where, again, also some of the shaping of, like, when they carved the triangular nose, those were from skulls. Like the skull kind of has like a triangular shaped nose, very death style. So that's where pumpkins really took on that initial shape to scare people. um, so now, another thing that the Scots and Irish brought with them with the old world customs, remember we talked about the old world customs, was the throwing rocks through windows and starting to pull actual pranks. And it became really like just this dark routine every year for American boys to cause destruction. So, again, late 1800s, very turn of the century, early 1900s, you're getting where kids are looking forward to Halloween every year so they can go out, do pranks, and just act up. I mean, think about it at this point. Um, but another thing that happened though at the turn of the century, we had a great artist movement, right? And I'm sure if you're an artist out there, you probably know around that turn of the century that look. You probably know the name of it. I don't know if it's Art Deco or something. I don't even know the name of it. But there was these artists right at the turn of the century that sort of actually took all the spooky things, and a lot of the things you see, like the bats, the witches, the pumpkins, the skeletons, like ghouls and ghosts, the and they sort of put everything together, and they made all these advertisements for Halloween, and with the witches and the green witch with the warts, and remember the old witch. Nowadays, witches, they try to make them sexy. But back then, remember, it was like the wart on the nose and like maybe green, maybe they weren't green. They had the pointy hat and all that stuff, riding the broom, and little devils, little horned devils. Um, so they actually, that's where Halloween got its first look, truly, of when the cartoonish kind of look to it. But again, that first look, um, and of course, ghosts, guys, ghost came. It's pretty simple. The ghost came from the death shrouds when people were wrapped in the sheets, right? The wraps. That's really where the ghost came from. I think that's why sometimes people find, just when a figure is standing there with a sheet over it, it's still spooky. You wouldn't think it would be so scary, but I think it's just that idea that a lot of times, yeah, dead people are just wrapped in a sheet. So it can be a little scary in that sense, but that's what it was. That's where you had that. All right. So by the 1920s, Halloween pranks were just getting out of hand. I mean, it was just getting bad. We're talking about derailment. Like, they were putting like bars of soaps on the trolleys and stuff, like on the tracks. They were derailing like trains, pretty much. Fires. They would go and move people's steps, because back then they built these steps. They weren't attached to the house. Sometimes they would move their steps. People would come out and fall and get hurt. It was crazy. It really was getting bad. In fact, in 1933, they labeled that Halloween as the Black Halloween. It was the worst ever for pranks. So this kind of caused like a call to action. So like your firefighters and your public, your civic groups, right? They started to try to figure out, what can we do to avert this. I mean, because like every year, I mean, it's just getting bad. The cities are burning. Things are all it was just bad. So what they started doing was they actually invented these parties for kids, for the younger generation there, I guess. They would have these parties to lure them from the destruction and have fun. So that started to simmer things down. They even came out with masks for the parties. A lot of them were paper masks, paper costumes back then. So of course, unfortunately, they're very flammable, and there was a lot of articles back then about people getting kids getting burnt in their costumes. Unfortunately, Sears came out with a new box costume. Um, Sears for the longest time had those the costumes in a box with the mask and stuff. Those were better quality. They started coming out, and people were doing those. So, also parades. They did start doing parades even back when the pranks were really bad, um, but it wasn't really starting to catch on until they really made that movement of, hey, we need to do something about this. Um, Parlor parties were all the rage too. Yeah. Um, so parades started to make things a little more mainstream, and that's what we needed, right? Um, so one of the things that happened though is like I want to say it was probably in the late 1930s. Someone in a neighborhood started to pay off the tricksters with homemade treats, with popcorn balls and candy apples, right? That's the homemade treats. So of course, like I said, these kids were showing up to do tricks, and some homeowner said, "Hey, like, wait, I'll tell you what, I've got some popcorn balls or some candy apples. If you don't trick my house," and it worked. So, like, okay, and then of course the neighbors started doing it, and it spread, right? And in fact, the first time I think we ever see in print was 1939. We actually seen the term trick or treat. So trick or treat is not it's not some ancient term. Trick or treat again, it's about like 80 years old. But like I said, the first time trick or treat was in 1939. That was the first time it was in print. And of course, as pop culture starts to take off, the candy companies were like, "Hey, you can offer them candies, Mars bars and Hershey's and things like that," right? Back then. So yeah, the candy companies jumped on board. So the pop culture really started growing. And then, and of course, the cartoons, right? Donald Duck, things like that. These were very popular cartoons, Disney. And then in the late 1960s, right? Uh, Charlie Brown took us trick or treating, right? The Great Pumpkin Patch. So with Charlie Brown, that because it was to the TV now, TV was the newest thing, right? It just blew up, and so that really launched Halloween mainstream, like full on, thanks to Charlie Brown. And of course, then other cartoons started following suit as well. Um, then I guess, so at this point, we'll do a quick commercial break, and we'll come back and we'll start finishing up. Hey guys, if you like the work that we do here at the Everything Paranormal Show, there's many ways that you can help support the channel. Go to the everythingparanormalshow.com, click donate or subscribe. That's going to help us out. And if you can't do that, click like and share, and that's going to help us out in a tremendous way. Thank you so much, guys. Okay, and we're back. So one thing I wanted to finish up, you guys can kind of see where just all of these things sort of started falling into place over the hundreds of years of these different traditions kind of conglomerating to one and kind of getting wrangled in down to the last minute. And you can see where candy saved the day. Really, it really did. The treats, when the candy company started doing that, it really saved. It finally kind of bought off a lot of the pranksters. I mean, is there pranking still going on the night before? Well, absolutely. And even when the pranking got really bad, like they were, I want to kind of backtrack a little bit, but they were even like letting farmers, cattle and sheep and livestock, they were open up gates and letting their livestock go running and stuff. And it, I mean, it was bad. In fact, the night before, they were calling it Gate Night, you know, and which turned into like Hell Night. So I grew up, I remember calling it Devil's Night. The night before Halloween was called Devil's Night. So that was when I grew up. But yeah, so candy though really did come through, save Halloween. Now, as an industry, to kind of add a little bit more, uh, it really wasn't until John Carpenter's Halloween, right? Really was that first movie to sort of capitalize on the somewhat newer holiday, right? Halloween. So, and of course, it spawned a multi-million dollar franchise from there, and of course, inspired probably billions of dollar industry of other horror movies. But one of the things it also did was with the Halloween movie with Michael Myers was The Mask, and it really showed that you could do a lot with just like a cheap mask. And I believe again it was a William Shatner mask. They went and they found it at a magic shop, and it was a William Shatner mask. They said it looked nothing like William Shatner, but they just kind of were like, okay, and then they painted it up just a little bit. They just spray painted or something a little bit, and so a cheap mask, and it really made the difference. So, but it also just showed what masks could do. And so then, of course, with the, you know, as you start to see the industry evolve, you've seen the horror movies where they just more and more masks and they got more intricate, and now you can get almost movie quality masks over the counter sometimes. It's crazy. It's crazy how big things are. Also, too, you can mention how the adults when John Carpenter's Halloween came out, it also brought more adults into Halloween. um Again, it was still sort of that youth movement of pranks, and then of course they were getting bought off by candy, so again it became like a kids thing. The youth getting candy for not pranking anybody. But now when you get into that the 70s and 80s, you're really getting into um, the horror genre, and it went from ghouls and goblins to psychos and killers and human killers and stuff as well, all kinds of stuff. But um also too, if you notice it, and I didn't really want to talk too much about it, but it did allow some adults to start kind of role playing. They that one time a year where they get to dress up and put on costumes and masks and be somebody different. And they've had major adult parties for doing these things. And there's just a whole other world to that, that it spawned also. So as you can see, I mean, I wanted to kind of spend some time talking with you guys live tonight. If this is all you came for, then you know I hope you enjoyed it. But if you have any questions, if you want to talk about any of the history of Halloween, by all means, as we round the last part of the hour here, I'm more than happy to start taking any questions, comments, favorite things about Halloween. What do you guys enjoy about Halloween? What's some of your favorite things? I know for me, candy, like, I mean, obviously, the older I get and then the heavier I get, I try not to eat a lot of candy. But of course, I mean, I'm still a big sucker for Reese's, peanut butter cups, and Nestle Crunch. I really like a good Nestle's Crunch bar every once in a while. Just um, just get that. But when I was a kid, they were still giving out candy apples and popcorn balls back then. I know I sound old, but you still would come across that house that would give you that caramel popcorn ball or something. It was always like hard as a rock. You could never eat the thing. I don't know if anybody could ever eat it because I swear to God, it's like I think I'd try to eat the popcorn ball and it would just kill your teeth, man. Even when you're young, it's like Oh my God, you'd probably have to smash it. But I don't think I ever actually ate an entire one. And of course, the candy apples. I don't know. It's like it was always scary. Ooh, excuse me. I just like bit my lip. But no, like the candied apples was always like scary because like you didn't know, and there was always like talk about razors or needles. Apple, see, Spirit of Debate says apples with a free razor included. And the funny thing is, look, out of the millions of transactions in America that happen with candy, there's rarely anything out there. Now, maybe this year I'd probably be more scared this year just because of the climate we're in right now and how divisive we are and people are getting so mad about things. So, oh hey, Rachel Lecter says I was the of the age where we were not allowed homemade treats like popcorn balls and candy. Right. And that's the thing too, is like even though I would get it, it's like that was kind of like a general rule of thumb is like, well, if it's homemade, and what's really sad, here's the thing. What's really sad about that is there probably was like a sweet old lady or a sweet old man that was sitting there baking these Rice Krispie treats or popcorn balls or something. They were making this awesome homemade, like I remember sometimes they even have like homemade Halloween cookies. They probably put their heart and soul into them, thinking that they were giving the kids the best treats in the world. And what do we do when we get home? We're like, oh, homemade. Oh God, razors, cyanide, poison. This stuff is. Oh yeah. Oh look, it's a Snickers bar. We can eat that. It's like, oh man, I feel bad because I grew up in the country area out south, like really southwest of Detroit, out of the country, and it was and again, some of these people probably made some of the best treats, but it was like homemade, it was scary. So how many of you used did y'all have a bucket or did y'all have a pillowcase? I always had the traditional pillowcase. So back in the 60s, everything was more innocent than now. Well, and that's true. That's what I said. There's you could always get into the whole discussion about different times and things like that. I still think there's a lot of good people. Again, I think a majority right now, you go trick or treating, I'm sure 99.9% of all candy, I'm sure in this nation, of all things given to kids, is probably going to be safe. But again, there's probably some a-hole out there that's going to do something to one of the candies or something like that at some point. And of course, it'll continue the urban legends. And I hope not. I hope that if any kids get to do any trick or treating this year, that everything goes well and that kids get something nice out of 2020. That would be nice for me. I think, guys, if you're watching this, and you somehow get trick or treaters this year, be nice to them. Don't put any razors in the apples. You big jerk. That's horrible. First of all, but let these kids have some kind of 2020, please. So Rachel said pillowcase. All right. Anybody else? Pumpkin bucket was a Spirit Debate. So yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. I said I always had the pillowcase and I did the homemade costumes most of the time. I had some store bought. I remember one year, of course, I had to do the Star Wars because it was new, right? Um, I always had the different costumes. So when I could, but I did always do the classic. I'm a hobo. It's like that's like the fallback for everybody. Like, oh man, I didn't get a costume, so I'm just gonna find me a flannel shirt and my old and it's always got to be your old clothes, right? And I'm gonna throw uh, some of my mom's or mascara or just kind of smear it around, whatever. Like, here you go. I'm a bum. Taylor said never had pillowcase that I can remember. Uh, Terry had a pumpkin bucket. Okay. See, I never knew that about my wife. I don't remember her telling me that. I don't remember if we ever talked about that. Did we ever talk about that, honey? But that's good to know. That says, I'm still convinced that needles and candy was invented by parents who wanted to raid, inspect my stash. And hey, I would say there could be a good chance of that. Um, but I mean, God, I just wonder whoever said that, like it's now planted in people's minds. Like they put it out there. So now inevitably there's going to be someone going, well, I'm a bad guy and I heard about razors and apples, so hey, let me try that one. you know, don't eat the apples though. I mean, I don't know because there's always like that person. I don't know if they're like a dentist or something, but who gives out apples? Come on, man, be cool. Don't be that jerk. Like, "Yeah, I'm gonna give everybody some kale, like kale chips. It's healthier. They don't need no candy. Come on, folks. It's Halloween. Give out the candy. If you want to eat kale chips, you eat kale chips, okay? Don't give it out to the kids. Don't give them no healthy crap. Come on. Just be fun. Because you all know that you like get in there and you get like and you're like a kid. When you're a kid, you're like, why are you giving this to me? And you always got those things, and they're not candy. They weren't fun. And look, and this is good. I'm gonna get in trouble for this. So Lord forgive me. But it always sucked when you're a kid, and then you got like a pamphlet about God or Jesus. And I'm sorry, Lord. I know I'm gonna get in trouble for that one. But when you're a kid, you're like, you want candy, and then you just get this bag, you're like, oh, what's this? And it's just like, let God into your life. And they had like, like, come on, you're like, I'm a kid. Um, but I love you, God. Please forgive me. So, anyways, but yeah, how about tofu candy? See, don't do anything gross. Like, seriously, what candy was the last you ate at bottom of bucket? Mine was the nasty candy cores. Candy cores. Uh, I. It's weird. Like, look, you remember, like the orange and black, like peanut butter, whatever, hard kind of round candies. Um, I always hated those as a kid sometimes, but then there was every once in a while I would get like in the mood for them, kind of like candy corn. Um, but I don't know, candy corn what comes and goes with me. There's some years I'm like, hey, I like candy corn. Then there's some years I'm like, nah, can't do it. Yeah, see, Rachel says those poor black and orange wrap candies, peanut butter flavored, I think, terrible things. Yeah, they just had this weird texture to them, though. That's the thing. They were like tough, but they had this weirdness to them. I don't know. But there was a period in time where, again, I did like them for a little bit. Jones like, yes, I've seen people give out microwave popcorn. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I mean, microwave popcorn for real. I mean, I guess if you're like strapped for, you're like, oh crap, how do you know it's not October 31st? Like, oh man, it just snuck right up on me. I mean, oh my god, I got kids come up to my door. Honey, hand me that box of Act Now or Orville Redenbacher. Let's get that out there to the kids. Here you go, kids. Have some Orville Redenbacher. Be good stuff. Like just make your own popcorn ball. Yeah, here you go. I'll give you some of those orange and black things, melt them down, pour it on your popcorn. Hated though they tried to taste like some form of peanut butter taffy. Yeah, I mean that's probably like the best description I would say, Terry Lynn. Yeah, I think you're right. It's probably like a like some kind of peanut butter taffy. Because that did kind of have that texture. But what other horrible treats? Oh, black licorice. Man, God, can we just do away with that, please, folks? I mean, just keep it like if you want to cook with it or bake with it or something, or I don't know. But can we just get rid of black licorice? I don't know. I rarely come across people that like it. Okay. And if you're one of those, then you're an outlier. Okay? Because in the middle area, we don't like that. You're an outlier if you like it. Um, yeah, good and plenty's exactly. Like they try to candy coat the black licorice to like fool you into like, hey, this is even better if we just do a little bit of candy coat on it. No, no. That's why I don't eat grapefruit. Grapefruit sucks. Sorry, if I put some sugar on it, I can do grapefruit. If I want fruit or if I'm gonna do something, I'll have an orange. At least that's sweet. Circus peanuts. There's a good one. I have not had a circus peanut in. I'm afraid. Like I've seen them. Like they have them in the stores. And I'm sorry, kids, if you get them. But and you know what's crazy is like the circus peanuts. They were never in like a any kind of bag though. For real. Like I always would get home and I would just find loose circus peanuts in my pillowcase. Right? I'd dump everything out and they were like loose in there. Right? Smarties. They're like a weak, chalky sweet tart. Blah. Okay, look, I like Smarties. Sorry, I do like Smarties because it's like this little form of crack to me. This just little like just good sugar pill that you could just crush up and snort. No, I'm just kidding. You just eat it up. I don't know. I like Snorties though. They were like a hard pixie straw thing. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I can see where you talk about like a chalky sweet tart. I've never been a gummy person, so like my wife loves like gummy bears. So anything gummy, any kind of gummy worms or anything along there, I've never been a fan of. So anytime I would get that, I'm not. Ray says I love circus peanuts. Memories of my great grandmother always having them around for me. I Snorties. Yeah, no. Yeah. Anyways, there was always that dare when you were a kid, right? With the pixie dust or something. We all, hey, I dare you to snort it. Anyways, kids do not snort candy ever. Let that be a warning to you. But yeah, circus peanuts. I think I don't know. I want to try one as an adult because I know, like I said, now I can eat candy corn every once in a while. But I see them. Like I think Walmart has them, like in the one candy area where they got the different bags of specialty candy. Um, no, not where I'm from. You're from. Yeah, I guess because I was from the Detroit area. I guess snorting candy is normal. It was like a dare, back then, kids, boys. See, you were a girl though, honey. Boys do those things. They do stupid stuff like that. Like, I dare you to do that. They do things differently there. That's probably true though. What else? God, guys, but I know we talked about movies last week when we were talking about prequels. So, but by the time you get to the circuit peanuts, there's lintel. Right. See, that's what I'm saying. There's stray peanuts. I don't get it. Like people, how can you just hand them out to kids? Like, and I'm not just being a germaphobe, but I mean, you're just grabbing these things and tossing, and they really don't have a shell. Like they really don't open up, and but I never would have them in a bag. Like I don't know if you can. If you put them in like your own little bag, they would stick together or something. I don't know. But Barty Bots, all flavor beans, Harry Potter. I'm lost on that one. Barty Bots. What? Am I missing something here? Harry Potter. Now, I've only watched the first couple Harry Potters. I didn't read the books. And so, moving on then. I don't want to hold up everybody because I don't know what Barty Bots are. So, you might have to clarify for me. Exactly, spirited. Some taste like earwax. Oh, remember when you get wax, like wax stuff, guys? How many of you got wax things? Remember that? Like you get I remember getting like wax vampire teeth in my thing one time. You put them in and play with, and it's like, or you get these little wax filled deals, and it was funny because you'd put it in your mouth and there'd be like that liquid, like I don't know, Kool-Aid or something inside there, and you just get that little squirt of whatever the hell was in that wax, and it was like not that great, and then you had like flavorless wax that you were like chewing on, and you're like, and you're like, I thought, what am I supposed to do with this? And then inevitably, you always had to spit it out. It was just this, ugh. Yeah, Circus Peanuts outside package. Oh, that's horrible. Different ball game. I remember the one time my mom, rest in heaven, worked late. The credit union. She came home and didn't have time to get candy, so she handed out nickels, left alone, rated all the change. See, and that remind. Oh, wax lips. Yes. See, wax lips, wax whistles. Right. See, you remember. But you're right, honey. That reminded me too. Yes, there was the change people. Yes, I remember. It seemed like every year I would get like a nickel or a penny that was inside one of those like cardboard things with the windows. You know what I mean? Like it was in the almost like a coin collector type thing. Did it? And I don't remember if I ever got a special one. I don't think I ever got. I just think he just went and had them packaged for Halloween, and it always made you seem like you got like a rare coin or something. But I do remember I would get like a nickel or a dime or something, but it was like it was in the little white square, protective thing. So I remember that. Yeah, the weird juice and the wax bottles and stuff. Like it's weird. Like I said, you taste it and you always like, and you always went for it. You're like, I'm gonna do it, even though you know it tastes like crap. Oh, mom was just a plain nickel. It's like, just a nickel. But either way, that's cute. You know, I can't say that I ever just got. I don't know if I ever got loose change, but oh man, what other stuff did you guys hate? Um, I think it kind of sucked when I would get the little bags of pretzels every once in a while, or sometimes I remember. God, that brought back a memory too. I remember sometimes I actually got the full on pretzel rod. Like I get a full on pretzel rod. Like sometimes they'd have it wrapped up, but it wasn't like dipped in chocolate or anything like that. It was just a pretzel rod. Like seriously, that was always boring as a kid. Like you don't want any pretzels or anything like that. You want candy. You're always trying to get that sweet score, man. That full on. Now on the opposite side of things, right? When you scored good, when you got that full size candy bar, you're like, oh, like the angels were singing, oh, and you're just like, oh my god. Now I will admit, and I actually had a chance to show my wife when she actually did come up to my childhood neighborhood. We actually got to go trick or treating out in the country, and she got to see for herself just some of the big full on candy bars that you would get in the country. So I will say that is one thing I can always say is in my neck of the woods. And I don't know if that's because they had to reward you because you had to like run to all the houses. If you really wanted to have a good bag of like a good score, you really had to chuck it through the neighborhood because the houses were spaced apart. Driveways were a little longer at times. Um, so yeah, I mean, you really had to hoof it when we were kids, but you got rewarded with those big old full size candy bars also at times. Milk duds, yeah, I can see where milk duds. It's like a toss up for me. Again, milk duds were like to me, milk duds and Tootsie Rolls were always like that last level of candy when I got desperate. Like I wouldn't throw them away. I didn't want to get rid of them. But like when you burn through all your chocolate, all your good stuff, you know, you got down to where it was like milk duds and Tootsie Rolls, things like that. And then you start dipping into those when you're like really desperate, like, oh, I guess I'm gonna have me some milk duds. And you're like, Yep. Good. Good. So yes, now and later's. Oh my god, now and later's suck. Oh, I'm not a now and later person. They were always so hard. They were definitely later. But yes, always I always try to keep that last bit of weird candies. Like even like Skittles or Starburst, things like that, like those fruity candies and stuff. I always try to keep some of those for last level as well, just because again, once you go through your good stuff, you gotta have that last level of backup.
Okay, in your Facebook Messenger, I actually sent you a picture of the very first Halloween that we had in the country.
I can't pull it up though.
On your Facebook Messenger, all you have to do is
Mm.
pull up your camera, pull up your
Uh,
phone, and show them. That shows the hall that you guys hit for Christian's very first Halloween out in the country. Those people don't play out there. They give you full size everything.
yeah, so then this is what I was talking about. Let's see here. So here you go. This is exactly what I was just talking about, guys. So here is literally a picture of when this was that first year when my wife she moved up to we moved back up to Michigan for a couple of years, and I was like, hey, we got to trick or treat in my old neighborhood out in the country, and so this was like the score that my son got. Let's see if I can show you guys that there. See, you can see all of the full size candy bars. I mean, that's like massive score for a kid. If I would have had that back then, I mean, how awesome is that, right? I mean, how awesome is that for a kid? So yeah, that was an amazing score for our little guy. Of course, we had to help him eat it. He was pretty young back then. Oh, good job, honey. Way to send me the picture. Thank you. So yes, um, yeah, like anytime you get those little like the three sweet tarts like in the package, some of those I would keep. It's not that I didn't like sweet tarts, but sometimes again I would kind of keep some of those things back for that last. Again, I always prioritize my candy, right? You always went for the good stuff. You try to maybe dip in a few things here and there to kind of stall, but no, eventually you'd eat your way through, and then you get down to that next level of stuff. Like, well, I guess I'm going to deal with these next, and then you're pretty soon you're like, all right, these, and then pretty soon you're like, oh God, I guess I'll have to eat these, and then you get down to that last bit where you're just like, it's by now it's like February, and you're like, I'm done, man, and you just like throw whatever you got that's sitting around in that last dish, just sitting there, suckers. Right, some dumb suckers that you're just like didn't feel like eating, like some weird, raspberry sucker or something that you didn't want. So Charleston chews, right? Just something like that, right? So she said, never seen so many full size candy bars, and see, and that's what I'm talking about. In back in the country, my neck of the woods, that's what you would get, a lot of full size candy bars. Of course, we get a lot of the stuff I was talking about too. So don't get me wrong, but again, that's just how we did it back in my area. Now you go out in the city, anywhere you get closer to the city, suburbs, the subdivisions. Obviously, the candies are going to get smaller. People are going to get the little mini candy bars, and because there's more kids, there's a higher volume of kids. So yes, out in the country they do that. It was crazy. Never seen that before. They do it every year. Yeah, it's again. That's just how it was. It was always nuts. So guys, um, as a reminder, I hope you guys enjoyed the history of Halloween tonight. I hope you guys learned something. If you missed the beginning of the show, like I said, make sure to go back and check that out, because again, this I covered everything from the old Celtic days, thousands of years ago, all the way up through the Middle Ages, where a lot of things started shaping and taking place into what we know as current Halloween. But we did a whole history ride going up from the beginnings of thousands of years ago all the way up to the modern times. So I hope you guys enjoyed part 1 of 4 of our Halloween specials. I really enjoyed doing that. I hope you guys enjoyed the special intro. I did the Halloween intro, and I changed my font colors to some pumpkin orange for you guys. Really trying to get into the Halloween spirit. I mean, we're in October. I'm not gonna lie, I've been distracted by all the crap going on in 2020. So I'm trying to make sure to let myself have a little fun, enjoy some of these things, even if we don't really get to do a lot of trick or treating this year with this stupid beer bug. But guys, I really enjoyed this. As a reminder, coming up, don't forget next week we're going to try to get Tata on here and join us to talk about cryptids and other crazy creatures. Yes, that's right. We're going to dive in and start talking about what are some of these creatures. I mean, and yes, we're talking like Bigfoot, and we're talking about the chupacabra and things like that. What are some of these creatures that might be running around here and being a little spooky? So we're going to talk about that. And then on the 22nd, the following week, we're actually going to be talking about Hollywood monsters, Dracula, Frankenstein, right? All the fun stuff. We're going to talk about that as well and how awesome that may be. And then the 29th, right before we get into Halloween, we're going to talk about witches and ghouls and all those other scary things as we get into this year's Halloween. So look forward to maybe some live locations. I can't wait. Guys, I really hope you had fun. Same bat time, same bat channel. Exactly, right? With my bat. Maybe I'll move the picture over a little bit. I don't know. But I thought it was cute if I just left it like that. I got the witch flying into my face and then the bat hat. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed everything. Again, yes, my birthday was the other day, honey. Thank you. So thank you. But our son's birthday is tomorrow. Yes, shout out to my son's birthday for tomorrow. We're looking at so yeah, my birthday was on the 4th. His is on the 9th. So one of those how how they say like there's a bunch of October birthdays and stuff. So it's like that's me, one of those. So thank you very much, guys. I really do have fun. I really enjoy these live shows. It's so much fun, and I hope you enjoyed everything that I brought to you guys tonight. It's been fun. So as we wrap up, guys, if there's any last minute comments, go ahead and try to squeeze them in there. I think that's pretty much it. I've covered my announcements. 3 more shows before Halloween. And happy birthday. All right, guys. Thank you so much for showing up tonight. And we'll see you in the next video. Remember, guys, seek the truth.